Smart 24, driving business.
A very pretty welcome once again to Smart 24 Television. This is the business edition where we're going to have a look at the stories that made the headlines like we do every Sunday, like at this very time. Among the stories we're going to look at is the reviewing of the national development, especially the NDP3 accomplishments. NPA is saying only 17% has been accomplished, 83% is unfinished. And then after, we look at the report from the IGG saying that 30% of the Ugandan companies pay bribes to secure their contracts. More of these stories will be coming up here on Smart 24 TV Business Edition. My name is Pedison Mumbe. Great welcome once again on Smart 24 TV. This is the business edition and it starts now. Let's start with our very own story, reviewing of the national development of Uganda here. Remember, we've been having 3 NDPAs. We've been having National Development Plan 1, 2, and 3. And over the weekend, they have been reviewing the National Development Plan 3. And remember, the role of these NDPAs is to propel the country towards middle income status through strengthening the country's competitiveness for sustainable wealth creation. According to a report from National Planning Authority, they're saying over 17% has been accomplished in the National Development Plan 3, but 83% remains unfinished. Now they're asking themselves, where could be the problem? Let's have a look at this very story there at the National Planning Authority.
The national development plans have always aimed at transforming key interests such as infrastructure, economic growth, and per capita income. As the NDP3 comes to a fall, the mid-term review report by National Planning Authority reveals that only 17% of the outlined goals have been accomplished, while a significant 83% remains unfinished. A switch to the program-based approach, physical deficit inspired by COVID distress, among other global economic shocks, inspired an expansionary fiscal approach. A rise to 9.1% of GDP physical deficit was in response recorded, shooting past the 7.8% target.
A substantial increase in government spending. You are spending more than 3% beyond what you projected in the plan. And it is understandable. There was COVID, we needed to spend, we needed to caution the economy, but that spending has come with some level of indiscipline. We are seeing supplementary expenditures at 8%. The Charter of Fiscal Responsibility and the PFM Act gives us a 3%.
Underperformance in revenue collection, rising domestic arrears to 4.65 trillion, and vulnerabilities in Uganda's debt portfolio have compounded the challenge. The 17% success reflects accomplishments in areas such as renewable energy, education, and healthcare.
Public investments contributed to low growth outturns. You find that a number of core projects have not been implemented. C, the high fiscal deficit. You know, it comes with challenges, how to finance that deficit. And you know how the market has been behaving. Very high interest rates. So you borrow at such a huge risk of paying back that money with heavy interest. D, the potential for fertilizer manufacturing in the country remains unexploited.
While it is essential to acknowledge the efforts made by the government, the 83% failure rate indicates a significant gap between initial aspirations and actual achievements. Priority to investment, insurance, and innovations are areas where emphasis has been advised to offset the 83% misfire.
First of all, investments. We need to pay attention to investments, from renewable energy to preparedness for pandemics and extreme natural hazards to ease planetary pressures. The second thing is on insurance, including social protection to prepare our societies for the contingencies of the uncertain world. And finally, we need to be innovative. Innovation in its many forms, including technological, economic, cultural, to respond to the unknown challenges that humanity would face.
Our public debt should be channeled towards investment in those productive sectors. And beyond that, if you notice, with the rise of the public debt is a challenge that we find this side on the reserves. As these public debt payments go up, the reserves are challenged. It means that the investments that we are going to finance using debt should be able to bring in some dollars. Otherwise, our reserves are going to be a challenge, and our macroeconomic stability is going to also be challenged.
It is the intention of the National Development Plan 3. Leave the project approach, come to program approach. But we are stuck with the people who are meant to, still thinking in a project approach instead of program approach. So we are going to begin with ourselves as the heads office of the Prime Minister. That I pledge, and also whip all the others. By the end of August, all the other programs will have secretariats. That I take on as the Minister in General Duties Office of the Prime Minister.
As the third development plan ends, National Development Plan 4 has been launched with renewed motivation. Focus has been tended towards infrastructure development, job creation, poverty alleviation, and technological advancement.
Roadmap, as have been displayed to you. This roadmap outlines the process and timeline for preparing the next 5-year plan that will guide our nation's development and transformation. As you may recall, the Uganda Vision 2040 aims to transform the Ugandan society from a peasant to a modern and prosperous society. To achieve this vision, we have adopted a series of 6 5-year plans that will deliver the aspirations of the people of Uganda.
Need for a comprehensive approach to national developmental challenges is still unwavered in light of the upcoming 4th plan.
Yeah, that's Dr. Muvawala over there talking about the National Development Plan 3 and where could be the problem. Maybe you have financial indiscipline in the country, but of course we have to do more when it comes to that. He's just saying that only 17% has been accomplished in National Development Plan 3 and 83% remains unfinished. Now that's the biggest problem as we are getting towards launching the National Development Plan 4. Now getting to another story here. Over the weekend, the female MPs have gone against the government's move to impose tax on diapers, saying that this will affect mothers' time of productive. They say that, however, government looks forward to charge this tax, but it's going to collect over 2.6 billion in that tax charge. However, they are saying this is a bad tax. They should tackle issues of corruption if government is to raise much more money out of that. Let's have a look at this very story that happened in the Parliament of Uganda.
A tax on both diapers for babies and the elderly was included in the recent tax amendment laws that Parliament voted last week. These included the Income Tax Amendment Bill, the Value Added Amendment Bill, and the Excise Duty Amendment Bill, among others. A number of female legislators claim that this tax was enacted in poor intent and that Parliament should rethink eliminating it.
Diapers, but also talk a little bit about sanitary towels. Diapers have been VAT exempt, and I'm sure that most of you are aware until this year when Parliament passed the VAT Amendment Bill 2023. During the debate on the VAT Amendment Bill 2023, which introduced that there will be a tax on all diapers that are imported to Uganda. The Minister of Finance indicated that government will raise about 2.6 billion from this tax. However, the minister didn't provide any studies on how this will be realized or even research how they got to this. So we think we are part of other female members of parliament and other Ugandans who are concerned about this tax And we think that imposing taxes on diapers will adversely affect the mother's productive time. You can see we're all mothers, and we also speak for other mothers who are not here. Reducing household income and national revenue.
Insensitive move by the Parliament of Uganda. It would be very unfortunate for this tax to go on, and at this moment I would ask members of Parliament to reconsider, because we should be very sensitive to the mothers, the maternal side. My colleagues have highlighted the dangers, the advantages, and it is very, very important that we know the people we represent.
The legislators argue that while it is true that taxes must be paid in order for government to function, a greater emphasis should be placed on reducing tax evasion and corruption, which together cost the nation billions of shillings each year, instead of introducing a tax that would take away a lot from women.
Of recent, you see that there are more women in markets. These women have no time for, like, they are working, they want to put food on table. But now if you say you're increasing tax on things that they use on a daily basis, like Pampers, then diapers, it's not fair. So if we fought corruption and avoided hemorrhage of the funds that we collect from the taxpayers, we wouldn't be imposing such taxes. This NRM government is very insensitive to the mothers, and we are not going to agree. This tax is not researched. There's no clear background why they are imposing this increment. Because
you know that many women at the moment are single mothers and are working very hard to bring food to the table. And what happens? Even they don't have enough school fees, and now they won't have enough money to purchase diapers. And it's unfair. There are so many taxes that are unfair, and we've talked about them. It's not just about the diapers. It's even about agent banking taxes. All these taxes affect women. Only that we concentrated on the diapers, and we also talked about the sanitary pads, because these touch on reproductive health.
Regarding the waste management issue, Honorable Christine Kaya has stressed out that the country needs a proper waste management system of items such as diapers and electric materials instead of overtaxing them, yet they play a fundamental role in the day-to-day lives of Ugandans.
I'm an environmentalist, and I would like to put it that our plan is to come up with proper waste management of diapers, not to reduce the use of this product. Actually, we cannot, for example, go away with diapers the way we cannot go away with the electronics, radios, mobiles. That is how we should place the diapers. We cannot go back to use of nappies.
In a bid to outsource revenue to facilitate the budget, government has introduced 6 bills, among which is a tax on diapers, though women members of parliament have deemed this bad for the mothers of this country.
Okay, that's a great one coming from our female legislators over there. They're saying instead of government slapping these charges on the imported diapers, it should look at reducing the high levels of corruption that is taking the lion's share of this government's money. Now getting to another story here, we're talking taming lots of corruption over here. According to the Deputy IGG Annie Mugisha, 30% of the companies pay bribes to have their endeavors done or to secure their contracts here. And there's another 2022 report that came from PPDA saying that some of other people here in country pay money to secure contracts as well. Let's have a look at this story that was compiled over there.
The recent IG report indicates direct causes of corruption are dominant in government revenues, taxation, use of fees for public utilities, among others. Currently, the private sector is one of the biggest victims of the vice that covers beyond governance. Over 30% of private companies are paying bribes to public officials for service delivery. Not only has this undermined fair competition, but also stifled innovation and hampered investment.
Nearly 30% of companies in sub-Saharan Africa pay a bribe to private officials, public officials, to get things done. Unfortunately, that is what the study has shown. And in Uganda, in a 2020 study by the PPDA, I hope they're here or they're represented, on perceptions of corruption in public procurement, found that between 10 to 17% of the value of public contracts is paid to public officials as an inducement to get contracts. The same study indicated that nearly 70% of the public think that there is corruption in the award of public contracts. Corruption is very costly.
According to the World Bank annual rating, Uganda is ranked the 116th out of 190 countries in the corruption bracket, indicating a growing challenge for economic development. Bribes, for instance, in taxation, are estimated at 27 billion shillings cashed out to tax officials, causing a shortfall in income and indirect domestic taxes. Casitas Isa Sechito advises implementation of internal controls and anti-corruption measures.
We have seen so many players in the government issuing authority that is not authentic selectively. The incentives that are given, who vets them? Are they across the board? Do we have a common criteria for getting the waivers? Do we have some criteria for the treatment of goods? Do we make the laws without inducement? Do we go to cabinet and your issues are objectively received and analyzed, or some people call you after and then you discuss out of the meetings?
Political reforms are not conducive for this shift from corruption. However, proper implementation and enforcement of laws and regulations will help end corruption. Uganda, like any other developing country, is set for delayed development due to hindrances in economic growth by distorting market mechanisms, deterring foreign investment, undermining public trust, and diverting resources away from critical sectors such as education, healthcare, and infrastructure.
The political economic context in Uganda, or the political situation as it is such that formulating the right policies or implementing reforms alone is not enough to bring about the necessary change. Now, the way politics is organized and practiced in Uganda is not always conducive to the implementation of even the government's best policies or initiatives. Now, as you all know, as all of you may have heard, we in Uganda talk a lot about how the government is very good at policy formulation. We have very good policy documents. The problem is in failing to implement these policies.
Data-driven, evidence-based information systems that provide a solid foundation for decision makers through analytical insights have been recommended to curb corruption. Projects linked to capacity and transparency have still been highlighted to point out loopholes in various organizations.
Really to improve transparency and reduce human contact, because it's clear that where people are involved, then corruption tendencies, the risk of corruption tendencies coming up is high. So what we do is we are promoting and supporting, building the capacity of the private sector to embrace the digital tools that have been put out by government, the e-procurement, the EGP system, so that a number of companies can be able to enroll on that system, and then supporting them to really be able to embrace that. But also we are working with NITA Uganda to improve accessibility to digitalized services.
The economy remains vulnerable to corruption, even with the various economic and political reforms being put to diversify development. Both the private and public sector are expected to tackle the underlying factors and implement reforms to promote transparency, accountability, and good governance.
Okay, those are the reports coming from the two entities, that's the PPDA and the IGG of Uganda, trying to say that about 30% of the Ugandan companies had to pay bribes to secure their contracts over there, and then this is something that we ought to stop. Now getting to another story here, we had specialists from the World Bank as well as from the Bank of Uganda trying to give us the rates of poverty rates in Uganda. But according to their report, they're saying between 2019 and 2020, about 30% of the Ugandans were poor, a percentage that was slightly lower than 31% in 2012 and 13. But they're saying, according to the report from the Bank of Uganda, they're saying 70% is engaged in rain-fed agriculture. Therefore, their income was vulnerable to climate change, and that's why poverty has a little bit increased. Let's have a look at this very story from the BOU.
According to the report, between 2019 and 2020, about 30% of Ugandans were poor, a percentage only slightly lower than 31% in 2012-2013. World Bank assessments indicate that poverty headcount rate in 2012-2013 was at 30.8%, raising to 31.8% in 2016-17, and reducing to 30.1% in 2019-2020. Worst of all, about 90% of farmers reported climate pain as the sector has been hit over the last decade, hence a leading shock and poverty accelerator. Bank of Uganda Deputy Governor Mike Ating Engo says about 70% of the country's population is engaged in rain-fed agriculture, making their incomes vulnerable to climate change.
That close to 70% of the Ugandan population is engaged in a rain-fed agriculture. So their incomes are vulnerable to climate change. So when you're talking about poverty, this is where you need to focus.
It reveals persistent inequality of opportunities, such as the low employment trend, contributing largely to poverty among rural areas, and the urban population tagged to private sector employment at about 80%. Still, in reference to the Central Bank's Financial Capacity Survey 2022, only 1% of Ugandans earn above 1 million shillings, and 49.2% earn less than 150,000 shillings per month.
There are a number of challenges. Some of them are structural, but others are speaking to how the private sector is structured in this country, but also the operating environment of the private sector, including, of course, the challenges we face in terms of health-related challenges, but also labor productivity. Most of the Ugandans are actually not productive. So based on the data by the World Bank, about our dependency ratio is at about 88%.
Deputy Governor Bank of Uganda emphasizes need for better coordination among government agencies, development partners, and civil society organizations to achieve poverty reduction through investment in financial inclusion. Meanwhile, World Bank decries poor sending and borrowing habits without consideration of cost effectiveness and appropriate disposal of funds.
Much as we are putting money in all these programs, we are having an issue of being cost effective. You know, you put money in a program, whether it is for education or health, but the issue of outputs, I don't think we are very serious as a country in terms of what are the results for the money. We're not getting value for money.
Securing the environment is essential in securing the livelihoods of these people and therefore mitigating the risk of them sinking into deeper poverty. Social considerations will have to include investments in communities and promotion of financial inclusion to crowd in those at the bottom of the pyramid. Let me backtrack here. When I talk about financial institutions engaging in environmental considerations, we are having a conversation that in your lending policies, what are you doing about preserving environment, about greening environment, about supporting small-scale irrigation, about increasing resilience, adaptability to climate change?
With its focus on strengthening resilience and promoting digital transformation, the report offers actionable recommendations for policymakers and development partners to accelerate poverty reduction in
Yeah, these are some of the poverty rates coming in from the Bank of Uganda, together with some good specialists in the economies from the World Bank that had an engagement over there here in Uganda. Now let's rush to Kigezi sub-region, where mudslides and floods are costing Kigezi region, where people cannot access their working places, people cannot move to their area of markets, people cannot do anything because roads are disconnected to each other. So that region has been affected so much in as far as business is concerned, in as far as transportation of goods and services is concerned. Let's have a look at this story that we compiled from Kigezi region.
Districts in the region appear to be cut off from one another due to broken bridges and impassable roads caused by recent landslides and floods, making transportation too expensive and difficult for locals to access social services such as education, markets and workplaces. While the government is focusing on rebuilding Kabale Road, the Kanungu district was also severely affected by the disaster, making internal trade extremely challenging.
We are cut off completely. You cannot cross. Even motorcycles cannot cross. Vehicles, those are cut off completely. So we have a challenge. If you want even to travel to Kampala, even to go to the hospital to Kunjiri, you cannot. You have. There is nowhere you can pass.
The other wrong route of the main road from Kanungu to Katojo, then to Kambuga. But this was the shortest route.
As recently suggested by Chris Badiomunsi, Minister for ICT, government is considering to redirect funding from other sectors to boost reconstruction efforts in Kabale.
Many roads, especially Maram roads connecting different communities, have also been damaged. Many bridges have been damaged. So government will have to find the money, even if it means suppressing some of the budgets. We shall suppress different votes and provide money to open up these roads, do repairs.
Some of the bridges that were destroyed in Kanungu district were the Chigando Hajbari and Chakire bridges. Mudslides also completely wrecked the Bikomero road that connects Kanungu to Rukunjiri district. Since Kigezi is known for its rugged hills prone to landslides, the locals have been encouraged to plant trees and use better farming techniques to prevent the recurrence of similar calamities.
We shall call upon UNRWA to come and reopen it and also work on it to make it a first-class Maram, but eventually it requires to be tarmacked so that it can remain motorable all the time and we avoid these kind of damages which are caused by rains.
While there may be short-term costs associated with the funding cuts, it is hoped that the long-term benefits of rebuilding critical infrastructure will outweigh these costs.
Yeah, this is how big the Kigezi region is being affected because people cannot access markets because of floods and mudslides. I think government has to do something to rescue those people over there. And then we'll be going in for a short commercial break. When I come back, I'll be bringing in the same story related to what is happening in Kigezi, that is in Rwanda region over there. Stay around. My name is Pedison.
Smart 24, driving business.
Jerry con! Jerry con! Hey, Master Blaster! Touch him, man! Buy Jerry con with muscle! Those ones who say go for you only. Mundava! Best movies I teach you. When I go with the muscari, because of the cover that is very far. Is you serious? Is serious you? What? Yeah? You step it on it. Add kilometers to your legs. And you get your sugar. Will you buy meat from Umaru? And Umaru refuses to give you enough meat. Mama! Show him that they don't joke with you. Umaru, wait. Jerry car.
okukakaluka n'okulungi kwetaagako omuntu akuyambako, n'olwekyo tujja kukuteerawo embeera esaanidde osobole okukola ekisinga. Awamu teri kitulema.
If you want to find wealth in Nairobi, look no further.
Toast to luxury. Cheers to that, babe.
We run this city.
Period.
You're more Kenyan than all other Kenyans.
Najaribu sana.
Who said I'm bringing drama? I brought the shade.
You brought it.
I'm here and I'm very comfortable.
Party.
I am not leaving. It's not your party.
Luxury redefined at Seasan Hotel as you indulge in the splendor of elegant living fit for the royalty that you are. Step into comfort, pampering and blissful customer-centric service as you select from our range of comfy exquisite living quarters furnished to meet with your royal preference. Surrounded by scenic beauty, our tropical setting allows you to escape the glamorous ordeal of city life. Our ambient green gardens will guide you to a place of revitalizing rest. The 3-star restaurant caters to your palate, serving your choice menu ranging from exotic cuisines to local delicacies. Our chefs will serve you full-course meals for a truly out-of-this-world culinary experience. Our fully stocked bar to whet your throat, from renowned global brand whisks, brandies, gins, beers and wines to our locally celebrated beverages, you will not lack for any brewage. It's an all-new experience in the East at Seasan Hotel, so visit today at Plot 15 to 19 Spire Road, Ginger, or contact us on +256 751 719 960 and +256 785 354 614 for reservations. Seasan Hotels, luxury redefined.
Say goodbye to paperwork and travel costs. Now every MTN customer can register to invest in securities anytime and anywhere with Zabu in a few simple steps. Step 1. Dial *292#. Step 2. Select option 1. Register with Zabu. Step 3. Enter your full names. Step 4. Enter your national identification number. Step 5. Enter your national identification card number. In 24 hours, you will receive an SMS confirming your registration. Congratulations, you are now ready to invest. Smart 24, driving business.
Welcome back from that commercial break. The business edition is still continuing. Like I said, that the same problem of backslide that is happening in Kigezi region is still happened in Rwanda region. But this prompted Minister Ekweru to be on ground to assess how big the problem is. In his words, the access to Democratic Republic of Congo from Rwanda and Uganda was so complicated just because of these mudslides, and then tourism was also affected. According to the minister, Ekweru says they're going to make sure that they work on tourism roads to enhance tourism over there, and of course enhancing trade between the two or three countries. However, mudslide is becoming a very big problem in that very region. Let's have a look at what Mr. Ekweru said in as far as mudslide is concerned.
Southwestern Uganda continues to halt survival in the wake of torrential rains that have washed away roads, agriculture and lives. While in Kabale, the State Minister for Works and Transport, Musa Echweru, has directed the Uganda National Revenue Authority, UNRA, to reopen Kabale-Kisoro Road for essential traffic flows as works on the damaged spot continue. However, according to the minister, the Kabale-Kisoro Road is essential for businesses, and closing it would affect the country and the neighboring countries of Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Come on behalf of the central government to thank these engineers for ensuring that connectivity to the rest of the country and indeed to DR Congo and is restored immediately. So on behalf of government, we are grateful.
Echweru adds that they will also consider empowering the local authorities to upgrade the status of access roads to secure alternative routes in case similar disasters hit again.
Their bills of quantities modest for working on those roads that pass through the rural setting but are critical for diversion here. And that may not be handled by these people with the limited 3 billion that the government is sending. So Uganda Road Fund will mobilize some small money, say like Rwanda, if say like they said, if we got fuel, worth say like 50 or 100 million, we can be able to do A, B, C, and
The minister also visited the Hamurwa floating bridge that connects to Hamurwa to the Kanungu district. The same place was submerged by floods, but Echweru says that this spot will be upgraded as the country prioritizes tourism roads in the next financial year.
We are going to do mainly rehabilitation and maintenance of the existing roads. That is what will take 3/4 of our budget. Rehabilitation and maintenance. But we are going to bring in new projects like this one, this what we call the tourism roads. Those ones are going to be priority for opening up, for upgrading the road now from what you see to tarmac. The tourism roads, particularly in Kigezi, have been emphasized. Kigezi and the Rwenzori.
The Rwanda district chairperson, Stephen Kasambia, asked the central government to quickly empower them in rehabilitating the access roads since the alternative routes that UNRA suggested to motorists are in a poor state.
Alternative routes. The alternative route, one of them is Katuna, Kashasha, Muko. Another one is Kagarama, Hisesero, Muko. But I want to convince you, I want to tell you the truth, that those alternative routes are not manageable. They are also part of the disaster. The alternative routes also got spoiled. So what I would request them to do is that now that they are thinking of the alternative routes in this period of time, they should maintain the one of Kagarama up to Nyaruhanga.
Kigezi continues to sustain a climate change impact that has now caused a big burden to both government and the different communities. The heavy rains have disrupted travel, tourism, agriculture, and ultimately loss of lives.
Okay, away from mudslides, both in Kabale and Rwanda region, both in Kigezi region, let's get now to another story here, which is going to be the oil market standards. People here in Uganda didn't know that they even test fuel that we use over here to see whether it fits standards. Now, the Minister of Energy and the Uganda National Bureau of Standards have launched a collaboration campaign, and in this campaign they are going to start testing the type of fuel that you use here, and we see whether it fits or it's supposed to be used here in Uganda. And now I saw very many stakeholders saying that the cost of testing this fuel is also high, and most of the people who are in this business, though, like the Bureau of Standards and the government, should look forward to make sure that they enhance these fees so that the collaboration campaign can go on very well. Let's have a look at this story that was compiled by Naomi Mutumba.
As part of its responsibility to protect consumers, the government established the fuel marking program. This will ensure that all fuel intended for domestic use is tagged at the border crossings. The program also contains mobile testing vehicles that are used to conduct spot samples, test the quality of fuel at all fuel retail stations, and check and calibrate fuel pumps to guarantee the reliability of measurements and the best possible value for consumers. In order to prevent additional vices like smuggling, fuel marking is putting into practice a program to make sure that the fuel in the nation satisfies the required quality standards. The oil marketing businesses launched the fuel marking program in the early 2000s in an effort to combat fuel smuggling following the discovery of increased sector competitiveness. New technologies have been developed over the years. However, stakeholders have highlighted a number of concerns about the cost of fuel calibration, including high prices paid per litre.
We're supposed to get an inspector. Do you have enough manpower for each station that's going to be calibrated to employ UNBS inspector?
Calibration of equipment, especially for the lab. I don't know if the metrology department has this service, because as for quality control fuel, the equipment that we have, yes, we have suppliers who help us come in and calibrate, but there's a challenge with the frequency. I don't know if this service
and measures rules, testing and stamping rules of 2007 gave the rate of 8,000 shillings for every 500 litres. Now, that is okay as long as you are working on tanks to the tune of 100,000 litres. When you exceed those volumes, the rate becomes so big, the fees become unmanageable. So we are now calling on the stakeholders for engagement so that we can get proposals and see how we work on those fees to improve them.
30% of the fuel was adulterated when Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development and UNBS began the fuel quality monitoring program in 2000. Peter Kitimbo, the UNBS principal analyst and the fuel marking program's field supervisor, disclosed during the engagement that the program has significantly decreased fuel adulteration in the nation to less than 1% and calibrated with high compliance from the oil farms.
It was, when we began, it was at a level of 30% non-compliance. We have managed to reduce that compliance up to 0.6% compliance, which means we have done a great work in terms of controlling adulteration. Not only adulteration, even dumping and having smuggled products, because our country is a landlocked country and other products are passing in. And these transit products are not marked. They have not paid tax. So they used to find themselves here by dodging tax, but we are managing also to curb that vice within the supply chain.
Is still good. We are still operating above 99% compliance, actually 99.6 from the report that even we received today. And that compliance rate has been up there for about 5 years. World over, the best world practices, the compliance rate is between 98.5 to 99.9 point there. So our rating is really high. We are among the
calibration exercise aims to ensure that fuel pumps dispense the right amount of fuel as indicated on their meters, as conducted by UNBS with the support from the government. According to UNBS, out of the 1,500 retail fuel stations tested so far, only 295 have passed the calibration exercise, while 1,205 have failed. This means that the majority of the stations were found to be dispensing less fuel than what customers paid for. Government's effort to ensure accurate fuel dispensing comes amid concerns about the quality of fuel sold in the country, as well as complaints from motorists about fuel shortages and high prices. The calibration exercise is seen as a step in the right direction towards restoring consumer confidence in the retail fuel market, serving as a reminder to fuel station operators to ensure that their pumps are calibrated regularly to ensure accuracy in fuel dispensing.
Yeah, that's all about the collaboration campaign that's going to take place over there from the UNBS together with the government of Uganda to make sure that they test the standard of the fuel that we are using here in the country. Now we're getting to optimizing oil and gas sector, not only in Uganda but Africa-wise. Over the weekend, we had the ECOP conference that happened at Serena Hotel, and keynote speakers had their say about this very program. Most of the things they talked about was the East African Community countries considered having financial task force to solve the sector leakages. According to the Vice President of Uganda and Eddie Karuhanga, they're like, we should look forward to make sure that we finance all oil and gas sector, not only in Uganda but Africa-wise. Let's have a look at this very story that was compiled by Rona Nahawe.
East Africa has solidified its position as a prominent investment hub for petroleum resources. This commitment will further be demonstrated through this year's East African Petroleum Conference, which promotes the area's petroleum potential and investment prospects on a rotational basis. Her Excellency Major Jessica Alupo conveyed President Museveni's message, emphasizing the conference's relevance at a time when East Africa is actively pursuing regional integration.
Has gained momentum. Our integration program has 4 key milestones, namely customs union, common market, monetary union, and political federation. These 4 pillars of integration are the pivot around with which integration in all aspects within East Africa is taking place. I assure you that the political leadership in the East African community is fully committed to the full integration.
It has been revealed that Uganda will potentially produce an estimated 1.4 to 1.7 billion barrels of petroleum reserves annually out of the regional 2.7 billion barrels. Notably, Honorable Eddie Karuhanga, a keynote speaker, raised concerns about the importance of establishing an efficient task force within the region to ensure proper management of oil and gas resources. He emphasized the significant financial losses that could occur if these valuable resources are mishandled.
I urge everyone to work together to ensure that East Africa becomes a leading investment hub in petroleum resources. It is achievable, it is doable, and with proper support, collective effort, we can do it. Let's form a task force of government and private sector to address these challenges. We have an opportunity of $10 to $20 billion. It is not government, it is not usual business. Let's form a task force and see how we can take this. The other day on Sunday, I listened to our head of Petroleum Authority, Mr. Ernest Bondo. He was on Twitter Spaces with Elson Karuhanga, and he said, if I remember, he said a lot of very many good things. But what I'm sure about is he said to us that this opportunity we have in Uganda is unprecedented, and it is something we must harness and achieve and deliver. So, to get 20 billion, he said that he's aiming at 40% staying in country. 40% of 10 billion is 4 billion. Of 20 billion is 8 billion. If that money stays here, with the local businessmen here and women, this Ernest was saying, imagine what our country will be like.
Uganda's Albertine Graben boasts of 6 sedimentary basins and is considered the most explored for oil and gas resources. However, successful implementation of such projects requires substantial financing. Although financing challenges exist, particularly for ECOP and other blocks, the minister has assured Uganda that sustainable finances will be secured. Despite these obstacles, the country has seen achievement of several contracts worth $6.7 billion, including $1.7 billion awarded to local contractors.
First of all, I feel bad that the financing institutions can choose to pull out at this stage. And secondly, I have confidence that we shall get the money anyway. We shall get the money for this project. And we are going on. We are going ahead with our plan because this is not a project to be abandoned. The good thing is that we are working together with oil companies. We are working with Total, we are working with CNOOC, and we have made sure that the environmental issues have been taken care of. So what reason? And lastly on this is that we want to handle the SDGs holistically. We are looking at the East African crude oil pipeline as one of the projects that will bring in money to fight poverty.
The Petroleum Authority has approved so far is about 6.7 billion United States dollars. And we see that about $1.7 billion of this is actually going to Ugandan companies. The total number of companies that have got contracts are about 640, and we're seeing that about 490 of these are actually Ugandan companies. It's also important to know that the contracts that have been given so far are the ones at the high level.
While Uganda awaits the signing of the final investment decision for the refinery, the Ministry of Kenya and the Republic of South Sudan reported on their respective advancements in the field and their anticipations for the conference.
In Kenya today, we're learning from Uganda. You know, we did discover oil a number of years after Uganda. And we are at the field development phase. So we're currently reviewing the field development plan to basically confirm the commerciality and the financial, the technical and commerciality aspects of basically pulling out the products. We should be able to do that in a short while, and then once approved through the parliament, we should be able to allow the companies that are prospecting to work us in another 3 years to final investment decision. And so when we come here and with our brothers and sisters in Uganda working through this umbrella organization, we're able to walk the journey and then basically...
We have been in the business of oil and gas for the last 20 years, meaning we have accumulated wealth and wealth of experience, both in terms of skilled personnel and experience that we have. And with this conference, we are ready to support our neighboring countries. We are ready to support them in terms of skilled personnel and capacity building and all these other things, because we already have the experience for the last 20 years. So we are here to look into the growth of our neighboring countries and see how we can support them in the long run and how we can get involved in providing them services and what we have already been doing in the country. In South Sudan.
Efficient and responsible utilization of petroleum resources has the potential to drive significant socio-economic transformation, as demonstrated by countries such as Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Norway. However, it is crucial to acknowledge that amidst the ongoing energy transition, oil and gas activities contribute to the greenhouse burden. Consequently, a more comprehensive and effective approach is recommended to address the challenges posed by the energy trilemma, ensuring sustainable development, environmental stewardship, and a secure energy future for generations to come.
Yes, that's all about the oil and gas sector here in Uganda. The Vice President at Eli Karhang as well had to tell us, or had to talk about the advantages of having this financial task force. If we have this financial task force, of course, in Africa, if we engage all the countries that are having oil, that is Uganda and Tanzania, and we come up with this financial task force, it can help us to fund the oil and gas sector without any external threats that is coming from the Europeans who are beginning to sabotage us in as far as environmental conservation is concerned over there. And then we'll be going in for another commercial break, and when we come back, more of the stories will be coming up on your way. Stay around.
Smart 24, driving business.
This is Jordan. When it comes to classwork, Jordan is magic. Jordan shines. Jordan makes his peers better. Jordan is a true leader. White Star Magic family. Be a leader. Be magic.
Jerry con. Jerry con. Hey, Master Blaster. Touch him, man. Bang Jerry con with muscle. Those ones who say go for you only. Mundava. Best group is I teach you. When I go with the muscari. Because of the cover is very far. Is you serious? It's serious you. What? Yeah? You stay with your needs. Add kilometers to your legs. And you get your sugar. We buy meat from Umaru. And Umaru refuse to give you enough meat. Mama! Show him that they don't joke with you. Umaru, where? Jerry card.
Okakaluka n'okulungi kwetaagako omuntu akuyambako n'olwekyo tujja kukuteerawo embeera esaanidde osobole okukola ekisinga awamu teri kitulema.
Say goodbye to paperwork and travel costs. Now every MTN customer can register to invest in securities anytime and anywhere with Zabu in a few simple steps. Step 1. Dial *292#. Step 2. Select option 1. Register with Zabu. Step 3. Enter your full names. Step 4. Enter your national identification number. Step 5. Enter your national identification card number. In 24 hours, you will receive an SMS confirming your registration. Congratulations, you are now ready to invest. Smart 24, driving business.
Welcome back from that commercial break. The business edition is still continuing. Now, over the weekend, the Parliament of Uganda mourned the State Minister of Labour, retired Colonel Charles Okello Enkola Machadonk. This parliamentarian or this minister was shot dead by his bodyguard in Chanjin Kawimbe division. However, the government was also pinged for delaying minimum wage bill over there. Let's have a look at this very story that was compiled by Samla Hanifa, our parliamentarian reporter.
The Labour Month won't easily fall without binding memories beyond labour protection crusades and addressing unemployment. The Speaker of Parliament, Anita Mong, has expressed displeasure with the unfortunate practice of priding in demise as it was observed in the death of the former State Minister, Charles Okello Engola.
This is a trying time that we all have to embrace, irrespective of which side you are. Today, Charles has been killed, Charles has died. Tomorrow it will be any of us. It will be any of us.
The Prime Minister, Robin Anabanja, who presented a motion to pay tribute to the late, said the fallen answered the highest call of serving his country as a professional soldier who played a fundamental role securing socio-economic stability in the northern part of Uganda.
Honourable Speaker, whereas Parliament received with deep sorrow the sad news of the demise of Honourable Colonel retired Okero Charles Patrick Engora Machodogo, which occurred in Chanja, Kampala, on 2nd May 2023, aware that Honorable Colonel retired Charles Patrick Engora Machodogo had a distinguished career and served in various capacities in the military and political spheres, where he greatly contributed to the political, social, and economic transformation of Uganda.
The leader of opposition has cautioned government over delaying the minimum wage bill, which he thinks could solve frustration among many Ugandans, and further asked for investment in mental health.
Honourable Speaker, there has been talk of unprecedented remuneration on part of the Eringo bodyguard. We don't seek to justify his conduct and decision in any way. We think it's time to dust the debate on the minimum wage, which has sprawled on the fence for a long time. Honourable Speaker and honourable colleagues, Uganda is ranked among the top 6 countries in Africa in rates of depressive and anxiety disorders. According to statistics from the World Health Organization, close to 20%, that's about 6.8 million Ugandans out of the 42 million people in Uganda, have some degrees of mental illness, ranging from anxiety and depression to severe mental illness. This should be a wake-up call to the government to scale up investment in mental health and subsequently increase access to mental health services.
According to legislators, government should take the matter of trade unions seriously, because oftentimes different groups have come out to express their dissatisfaction over underpayment, delayed salaries, which fuel unrest.
Of course, we would advocate for a minimum wage for every single Ugandan, regardless of whatever level. Because in developed countries, anyone who works can live and can survive. But in Uganda, some people who work actually don't earn enough. So if there's any advocacy for fair pay, I would support it. But as well, I need to be quick to add on timely pay. Fair pay, but as well timely pay. And two, let's also motivate and ignite workers' union. Because sometimes the workers easily share their concerns through workers' unions, and which would term as trade unions. It will be easier to have collective voices. And that's why government should always hear to collective concerns. For example, we hear the medical interns. They have been all the time we hear them coming up. Let's hear from them.
Yeah, that's what all happened from the Parliament of Uganda before the minister was buried in his district, Oyam. And now the minister left us when he had 64 years. That's according to the reports that we gathered from there. Now getting to Kasese district, a couple of interventions are being brought together to regain Kasese district away from the effects of climate change. Remember, Kasese grow cotton, matoke, and many other crops that are contributing to the country's GDP to a bigger level. However, all these endeavors have been affected by River Nyamwamba every time it bats its banks. Now, let us see what development partners are doing over there. Let's have a look at this.
Kasese district has a total area of 3,389 square kilometers, with conservation areas for tourism occupying around 63% of this space. While an average land holding of 1 acre per household and 71% of farmers living off their farming, arable land covers approximately 1,555 square kilometers. Cotton, coffee, maize and matoke are among the important value chains in the district that contribute to Uganda's GDP, as stated by the National Director for Worldwide Fund, Simon Peter Weredong.
Seeing that we are doing something, trying to do something to help people and nature who are desperate because of the disasters that was coming actually as a result of natural resources. If we didn't do that, people would continue to hate nature. And when people continue to hate nature, that is why they will continue to degrade natural resources. And we know the value of natural resources in Uganda and the world over. Our country, in addition to agriculture, I think the next one is tourism, which contributes the second most to the economy of the country. So if we have people fighting nature, then that can be degraded. So to have these interventions, it has been an important step to ensure sustainability of natural resources contributing to the economy.
According to statistics, two main cash crops are coffee and cotton. 85% of farmers grow Arabic and Robusta coffee, producing about 250 tons of coffee per season, while 40,000 farmers grow maize, contributing an average of 1,500 acres, yielding to a standing of about 100,000 tons of maize. But all these have been affected by the flooding of the Nyamwamba and other rivers during the last 5 years, bursting banks, killing people, relocating hundreds and ruining properties.
This project was not part of the World Bank project. The project funded by the World Bank, the Integrated Water Management and Environment Project. So when the disaster happened, we made a case. And I must say that we spent some time discussing and making really a strong justification why this project should be supported, but also to cut money from other projects, activities to fund. So when we started, frankly, we were not sure what we were going to get. I remember here, when the Prime Minister was here, the Minister requested me to come and mention what we are going to do. The Prime Minister said, "Are you sure that you are going to deliver what you are talking about?" I said, "We are going to try our best." And the Prime Minister said, "I will come and see what you have done." So seeing where we have reached, really, we are convinced and we are happy that what we set out to do has been largely achieved.
If this work is done and there is no work done downstream, this may be rendered useless. But if the whole sketch is covered, then that's when we shall realize the benefits. We do appreciate what has been sunk in. As a community, people are really appreciative, but we are worried that if the downstream is not worked upon, then we may not achieve the overall goal of having this.
The contractor will focus on the designated Masule, Namuhunga, Chanjuchi Camp and Chenjejo regions, maintaining the earthwork, installing gabion masonry and constructing a dike, a long wall constructed to prevent floods, are all part of the desilting process. As part of the multi-billion Nyamwamba River strategy, which the World Bank is funding, the ministry will develop an emergency response strategy for the river system, grow bamboo along the banks and set up a flood forecasting and early warning system.
We're happy to be able to contribute, although relatively modestly, from the project. Initially with a focus on mitigating the flood impacts from the river Nyamwamba. But we've been very impressed to see that a flood management and flood mitigation, shall I call it an engineering project, is much more than that. It is about community partnership. It has moved to livelihood improvement, and now we see that communities and groups are thinking ahead on sustainability and entrepreneurship. So I think it's blossomed, and as Dr. Kallis mentioned, although the project will eventually end, I hope in my capacity, both as the World Bank staff or maybe as a personal capacity, to come back here in a few years' time to see that the trees have grown and to see that the businesses have blossomed.
114 nations have received $480 billion from IDA since its founding in 1960. Over the past 3 years, annual pledges have averaged around $29 billion, with roughly 70% flowing to Africa. International Development Association IDA of the World Bank aids the world's poorest nations by giving grants and low-interest loans for projects and programs that will promote economic growth, combat poverty, and enhance the lives of the underprivileged. 39 of the world's 74 poorest nations receive aid from IDA.
these are most of the stories that made the headlines in our weekly bulletin that we thought you people are not supposed to miss. Hook us on all our social media platforms, that's Smart24 TV on YouTube Live, Smart24 TV Now on YouTube, and then let's meet next week. Bye-bye.